Tassa. This is homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the rightly self-awakened one. Tonight, I want to talk about the foundations on the path to Buddhism. And there is something called the 10 Perfections, and I want to focus on 3 of those tonight, and those are Nekama, Pana, and Kanti. Kanti, renunciation, wisdom, and patience. The 10 perfections are generosity, virtue, renunciation, wisdom, energy, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. Now, the 10 perfections were something that was perfected by Buddha over many lifetimes before his enlightenment. And so this is something that we can all work on, but realistically never probably achieve in this lifetime. So we're talking about improvement, but not perfection. And one of the things I want to do tonight is to talk about the B side of the 10 perfections. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever bought a 45 record, but when you bought a record because of the cool song. And on the B side was some other song that was, maybe it was going to be good, maybe it wasn't. But, well, Keith knows what a B side is. So the B side of the 10 perfections are the 4 character defects. And the 4 character defects that we all have as human beings are selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And the core of these defects, the core of samsara, which is our suffering, is selfishness. And so that's really what I want to go back to over and over again, because it's the thing that inhibits us from gaining wisdom and patience and renunciation. And it's these manifestations of self that block us off from our higher self. And so these 4 character defects that are on this board were not revealed by Buddha 3,500 years ago. They were actually revealed by 2 dudes in Cleveland, Ohio in 1935. There was a stockbroker, and a doctor. And they were both pretty successful businessmen in their late 30s, except that they couldn't get through a day without drinking large quantities of gin. And they were destined to die street drunks because they couldn't overcome their problem. And they realized that if they could work a spiritual program, they could change their lives. And so these 2 guys working together in Cleveland, Ohio, came up with a 12-step program that developed into something called Alcoholics Anonymous. And they discovered that if they worked these 12 steps as a way of life, they didn't have to die drunks, as long as they worked together and they carried the message and they worked these principles. And so the backstory on that is that that's what's happened in 1935. In 1979, when I was a senior in high school, my brother came home from law school, and he was 8 years older than me, and he had just been disinvited from law school by the dean because of his drinking behavior. And so he told me all the things that he'd done since he left home, and his story was the same as my story, except that I was 17. And so I decided that I was not going to end up like my brother, and I would control my drinking. And I set off to do that. And in the next 3 months of my control, I wrecked a car by running it into a police officer's car, which was a bad night. And I got into an altercation with a weapon and was investigated by the same police officer who I'd hit his car. And then I sort of Well, I had a head-on collision with another car going about 50 miles an hour one night when I was too drunk to stand up, sending about a half dozen people to a hospital, but nobody died. And that's when I decided that I was going to have to work these 12 steps and embark upon a spiritual life. And so I'm not here because I wanted to be here. I'm here because I didn't have any choice. I would still be drinking and having a good time, but for the fact that it would have killed me before I hit the legal age to drink, which oddly was not 17, even in Louisiana. So I started going to these AA meetings, and the program there is that the way of life is based on prayer, meditation, and self-reflection, which coincidentally is the same path that we have here in the temple and that Buddha revealed 3,500 years before. So these guys plagiarized something from Christianity and something from Buddhism and a little bit from Judaism and put it into these 12 steps. But it was something that I could do on a daily basis. And so I've been doing that since 1979 and meditating without guidance, without a spiritual community. Up until a few years ago when my mentor died, and in order to deal with his death, I came back here after being gone a few years, and started meditating on a regular basis. And then my spiritual practice got deeper and deeper, and I realized that the teaching of Buddha resonate much deeper than some of the other things that I've studied. And so in the other group down the street, the AA group, which meets at a church down the street here, they talk about how pain is the admission price to the new way of life. And here we have suffering, and the path from suffering, if we practice the eightfold noble path and work on these 10 perfections, which is why we're all here. So the first that I want to talk about is Nikama, renunciation. And that is the sacrifice to find a deeper joy, to find a lasting happiness. And so, for instance, Buddha made a decision to sacrifice his life of royal luxury and become an ascetic and study spirituality in the wilderness with a bunch of other ascetics until he was 29 years old. Is that about right? That's when he started. And he attained at 35. And then he discussed it with his followers for the next 35 years. Okay. He knows this stuff. I'm just going through it for the first time. But he had the opportunity to carry the message, and some years later it was written down in 64,000 texts. Is that about right? It's a lot. 84,000, yeah. So it's quite a bit of reading, and it's all in Pali, so you really have to learn a whole new language too. This is much simpler, and so the example of renunciation that I would throw out for Keith and Joe on the back row there that are hiding there, why not just have a glass of wine at the end of a hard day? It is relaxing. Everybody does it. It's not that big a deal. Now, for me, it would be a big deal, but for you guys, it would be fine. But that whole idea violates one of the precepts, which is that we don't partake in intoxicants, whether it's alcohol or drugs or cigarettes. But there are other distractions that we do justify partaking in that are every bit as much of an escape. So, for instance, glass of wine. Okay, well, I can live without that because I want to keep living. So for me, that's an easy one. But what about gummy bears? It's like everybody's doing these THC gummies now, and it's like, well, let's have 5 gummies and go home and watch a little TV. I can't afford to do that. I've given up the right to chemical peace of mind, but escape is my drug of choice, okay? And alcohol was a great escape for me. And gummy bears would be too. But video games also give me an escape, you know, and that can be a black hole for a lot of us. Or Netflix, you know, all of us, you know, I love to go home and follow a series, you know, but if that becomes my life, if that's the only thing I'm doing at night, then I'm wasting the day I've been given. Because as was pointed out to me a couple of years ago, you know, the time that I get up, I've got to take my shower, clean up, get my breakfast, you know, hit the street, put on a tie, go to work, earn my living, fight traffic home. And by the time I get back, I've only got about 2 hours. And so am I going to escape with those 2 hours, or am I going to do something fulfilling with those 2 hours? And I never really thought about that before I got here. It's really easy to get on social media and see what, you know, the envy box says. What's everybody's best face look like? And, you know, it's a lot more important for me to read the New York Times and see what's really going on, and then the BBC and what's really, really going on, and see if that affects my daily life. You know, and ask myself, what's the good that I can do with this day? And sometimes it's as easy as, you know, today I stopped by a friend's office, and he's dying of cancer. And he's been dying of cancer for a couple of years, but now he's really dying. And it's a painful, scary process. He's younger than I am. And he has a condition that's got him on a short timeline. And he's like, what do I do with my time? And it's like, wow, that's a great question today. And because he's got a short timeline, he's got to ask himself that question. But we all have a short timeline, which is why I'm here. You know, it's like I have work that I know I feel is important. Some of it is here at the temple. Some of it is at my office. And if I'm in a position where I can be uniquely useful to people, then I'm doing my job for the day. And if I'm teaching people, or if I'm reaching out to people in ways that are meaningful, if I'm sharing with my Dharma friends rather than my drama friends, and we all have drama friends, then I'm spending my time more wisely. And I still got to talk to my drama friends, but I can talk to them while I'm in traffic. And when I come here on Wednesday nights, you know, the thing I look forward to on Wednesdays is having tea and talking to people about things that matter. And, you know, whether it's philosophy with you, or, you know, the latest developments with you, or whatever it is that Keith's got to say, it makes me feel good inside. And I don't get that in a lot of places. And so, you know, that's time well spent. But there's also other things that I can do that are a waste of time, and a lot of it is habitual. It's just, we fall into the habit. It's like I get home, there's nothing going on, I look in the fridge, there's nothing there, I turn on the TV. I can do better than that. You know, this guy handed me a book called The 38 Wisdoms. And I pick up the 38 Wisdoms every morning with my first cup of coffee, and I read through one of the wisdoms. Sometimes I read through the same one over and over again because I am not that bright. You know, I've been studying the same 2 texts for 45 years, and I still don't really understand them. But that's okay, because I don't have to be bright. I just have to be willing to look. Which brings us to the next one I want to talk about, wisdom. And wisdom is not about being smart or acquiring knowledge. It's about being able to see what's really going on. And when I really focus on what's really going on, then my life becomes focused. You know, and not focused out there, but focused in here, focused in my center. And when I'm doing that, when I'm using the tools that Buddha brought us, and you know, he didn't just give us the 64,000 texts to 84,000. I'm shorting him 20,000. I don't think I'm going to get past 64,000. Probably not even the first 1,000. There you go. There you go. That's the one for me. But just like wasting my time, am I wasting my mental focus? So much of what we learn in here is about how to train our mind. And that's really the difference between this building and, in my experience, every church on this road. They're concerned about our behavior, which is also really important. But my mind is what's the root of my problem. My selfishness, the Bill part of my mind, is what's the root of my problem. And if I can get over Bill and what it is that he's craving and what it is that he wants, and focus on non-self rather than self, then I'm moving at a higher level. And then I'm doing things that really matter, as opposed to wasting my time and wasting my effort. And that's the whole thing, is that I don't want to waste my effort. I don't want to get to the end of my life and go, well, there was a couple decades in there that I just squandered because I was being stupid. And trust me, I've been stupid for more than 2 decades of my life. But I'm doing better now. And because I have good coaches, and see, that's the thing. I look for mentors now. I look for people that know stuff that I don't know, and I try to have coffee with them. Because I'm not going to think of it myself. I am not going to be Buddha. I'm not going to be an arahant. I'm not going to have enlightenment suddenly just come down on top of me. I ain't that bright. In fact, of the people in the room, I was really nervous to get up here because really this whole talk is about me and my inability to grasp things that you probably learned when you were young. Now, the household I grew up in, we had 7 kids, and my father was an alcoholic, and my mother was absent, and I was the 6th of 7. So by the time I came along, I realized that nobody was counting heads at night, and as long as I got home before breakfast, I was going to be fine. And so most mornings, I stayed out until 4 or 5 at night and just did what I wanted to do. That I never got arrested and that I never got killed is a testament to the fact that there was probably work for me to do in the universe. Because I deserved being killed a lot of times. I'm just going to say that. So the wisdom aspect of this and the selfishness aspect of this, they're tied together. And I have to recognize that as I go through my day. And I have to ask myself, am I learning from the experiences that I go through, or am I just fighting the experiences as I go through it? And I'll give you a great example. 2 years ago, I was in traffic, and I was on my way to pick up some food at this restaurant. We were having a party, and I was really in a hurry. And I was taking this little back road, and there was this guy that didn't have a lot of skill that's driving this FedEx truck. And he's trying to back it into this driveway, and I'm trying to honk my horn and get around him and get him to do right because I am really in a hurry. I'm really being self-centered is what it is. And he's having a hard time, and me honking the horn is not helping anything. And so he finally gets enough out of the way that I can scoot by in my little electric car, which I really liked. And just then he put his big truck in first gear and just smashed right into the side of my car and just totally demolished it. And I was furious. But so was he. And when the police came, I got the ticket, which was hilarious, except not at the time. And I went to court and I got it put aside. But today, after 2 more years of spiritual development as a result of all the good coaching I get, there's a truck that's blocking the road that I need to get home because I am racing to prepare for this Dharma talk, and I'm in a hurry, and there's this truck. And so I don't honk my horn, but I flash my lights at him. He doesn't move. I flash my lights at him again. He doesn't move. And so I'm going to drive around him, and I can make a maneuver to get around him and get to the street because this is really going to be an important talk, and it's going to change a lot of people's lives. Not really. And I decide not to. And so as I'm driving away, this guy honks his horn, and I'm thinking, what a jerk. But I didn't have to engage with him. And I didn't have to do anything other than recognize, here I am 2 years later, and I'm only a little better than I was. But it didn't total out the car, so I'm feeling better about that part of my day. So really what it comes down to is craving. myself craves. And when I'm craving something, that's the negative manifestation of self that Buddha says I have to get rid of. And that's the source of what? Suffering. Good. And the path from suffering is what? B? Yeah? Which is a totally different talk. But there are tools here that get us past the craving and past the root of our suffering. And that's why I come here. And that's why I continue to come on Wednesdays, and I even come on Sundays, because I hear great teachers present, and I learn things, and I get better. And that's really what it's all about. Am I getting better? Am I willing to put effort into my life so that I'm getting better? And maybe helping somebody else along the path. So that's all I've got. I was told that if I ended 5 minutes early and we had 5 minutes of meditation, that would be well spent. And that is what I'm going to do. We have another slide for patience, and my slide on patience is you have to wait for the next Dharma talk. So I have 30 seconds for a question. If you have one, B. Oh, no, you just wasted 10 seconds. Go ahead. I'm a stickler for time, but go ahead. You wasted 5 more seconds. Does anybody have a short question? Or just something to throw out? Yes, sir. I'm delighted, actually, because there'll be 1 or 2 people out there that are thinking, well, gee, I've always wanted to be an alcoholic, and maybe I could talk to that guy and see, how it worked out for him. No, the 2 paths are so similar, and so there's a part of me that's really embarrassed that I didn't pick up on that, like maybe in my 30s, because I waited until I was in my 60s to get here. But I still go to AA meetings, and I sponsor guys, and I help them get sober, and some people get sober and have healthy, productive, useful lives, which is what we want to do. And other people come in, and they can't get it, and they die. And that doesn't go to waste, because then I just tell their story. I go, well, I used to know a guy just like you, and he was so smart, and he was so successful, and he drank himself to death. And it was an unfortunate tale, and this is what happened to him. But, you have choices. And, some people got to die. The last thing I said to my dad, because he was an alcoholic, and I was sober 5 years. And the last thing I said to him was, you really need to get sober. And he looked me in the eye, and he said, son, I know you're right, but I'm just not ready yet. And I'm like, okay, well, that word yet is the strongest word there is. And when he told me that was, I got in my car and drove away, and he died a month later. And it was the biggest gift he could have given me. And I still thank him for that one word. And 40-odd years later, I'm still sober, and I'm still telling his story. And other people are moved by it, and some of them get to live. So, that's why we're here, because we want to live better. And so if we're going to meditate for now 4 minutes, let's do that, but let's think about what we want to do to live better. And that'd be a good way to spend 4 minutes. No, thank you.
I know I had to kind of nudge you to it. You didn't really step up to the plate right away. You're like, I don't know. I don't know if I have anything to share. But you have so much
Well, thank you.
I wanted to throw something out there too about the 38 blessings. Second one is associated with the wise,
The wise.
and then also the understanding that spiritual friends are not just half spiritual path, but the full path.
Mm-hmm.
And like he was saying, your talk is very inspiring, and it's also a reflection, right? Like you said, what am I doing with my time? What am I doing to make myself better? And it's always refreshing and inspiring to associate with people who are driven to help you stay aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Because, no matter how committed you are, you also, you also, there are moments when it's not always easy to start working out. It's great for you if you have to force yourself to the gym. The same thing about this path is you think it gets easier with time. Oh yeah, because you're meditating for 10 years. Oh yeah, or whatever many years. But the longer you do it, the harder it is because you're constantly going against your problems. Your laziness,
Yeah.
your not doing things, whatever it is you're going through. Life is so up and down that you really have to be committed to your self-development. So that's why it's something that's so powerful. We're able to help each other stay on that path. As long as you show up.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes it just feels like showing up. But afterwards, there's change, and it's subtle. And, you saying that you notice change makes me feel good. You're probably just trying to make me feel good. But it's a practice here. And that's the whole thing is that, we don't attain this. You don't get a merit badge for being here for 2 years. But if you work with the tools, you get more proficient at them. And I fall into a meditative state for 30 minutes at a time now. And when I came here, 3 was a huge deal. I wanted a pat on the back if I could sit quietly for 3 minutes. And now, it takes me about 3 minutes to get my mojo started. And then I'm good. And then it's just like, boom, okay, suddenly Nat's talking about, help me here, I'm loving kindness. And no time has elapsed, and so you get things like that happening, and it's kind of like, well, that's good. And to see people smiling because you see that, you see the time lapse. So that's all I've got, and we are 1 minute and 35 seconds over, so no meditation for you tonight. You have to just do that in the car.